These aren't the stories your mother told you. No, these are the other stories.
Today's episode of The Other Stories is The Mona Lisa Effect, written by Nick Botic and narrated and produced by James Barnett, aka Jimmy Horace.
On the side of a desolate road that traverses the equally desolate landscape of a region in the northern United States sits a nondescript structure. Its appearance is that of a warehouse one might spot amongst many similar buildings in the industrial district of any given city. Grey brick marred by age and the elements, windows along the top third of the sides and the bottom third of the face, a flat roof. It is a place more often driven past than driven to, as no signs advertise its existence. One of the innumerable, unremarkable edifices that adorn the sides of the winding avenues that make up the country's vascular system. But for some, the building's out-of-place visage beckons. And when the building casts out its coal, a driver might feel compelled to veer off the road and onto the dirt path that leads up to the building's front doors, which are perhaps the most distinct, if out of place, feature of the structure's exterior. The doors are made of ornate African blackwood with intricate designs hand-carved into them, spirals and cylindrical ravines both thin and wide, big and small. The knobs are similarly ostentatious, constructed of polished silver that glints in the country sunlight. As a guest enters the building, they aren't met with a stand at which they might expect to purchase a ticket. Rather, there is no fee for admission, though even if there were, there'd be no employee to conduct the transaction. This roadside museum is free and open to all travellers who find themselves coasting down the quiet avenue beside which it stands. And as this curious visitor passes through the sumptuous entranceway, the effect will be staggering, for as plain and barren as the land surrounding the building is, and indeed the exterior of the building itself, the interior is a lesson in overindulgence, in garishness, in decadence. It appears as if the space within is several times larger than the outside would suggest, its cathedral ceilings far taller than the roof outside would allow, the walls untold feet more spaced apart. Hanging from the ceilings are three large crystal chandeliers lit by warm jaundiced bulbs from within, shards of light bouncing about the walls. Below them is a large open floor layout that is home to what would immediately inform any guest as to the nature of the building. Statues and busts are featured prominently, cordoned by velvet ropes and lit from below by vivid white light. Hanging about the walls are scores of paintings from artists both modern and of eras past, in styles ranging from photo-real to abstract, to expressionist, and everything between and beyond. The subjects of these myriad works are invariably serene. They depict individuals who wear across their faces expressions of contentment, landscapes composed of warm, peaceful beauty, and in families in a state that, while perhaps not reflective of the time in which they, or people like them may have actually lived, appear to exhibit genuine happiness. Elderly men play chess in vibrant parks, lush with autumn foliage. Renaissance women of privilege gallivant about uncharacteristically clean and maintained towns. Children from some indefinite epoch frolic in the water of an ocean as blue as sapphire, and painted with such an adept hand as to give the impression that if one were to place a hand upon it, they would withdraw that hand and find it damp and dripping with salt water. And at each end of the strange building's easternmost wall are the entrance and exit of the special installation, what could perhaps be considered this odd museum's main attraction, in such a case that it did any attracting at all. A sign hangs above the entranceway as identification and invites guests in, warning them, in spite of the darkness beyond, to watch their steps until they are afforded more visibility. When the guest steps past the threshold from the main floor and into this special exhibit, the disorienting effect of the museum's inner dimensions will be joined by another, similarly off-putting result. The space ahead, what appears to be simply emptiness, will appear positively cavernous. The guest might wonder how this building, as large as it may be in earnest, could possibly contain such a vast amount of empty space? It is here that the guest may begin to feel their anxiety rise, as their mind tries to make sense of the inconsistencies with this bizarre roadside museum. The anxiety, however, will be put at ease when a light bursts to life up ahead, and another to the right of the first, and a third to the right of the second. Each illuminated area is rectangular, each wider than they are tall, giving the impression of bay windows installed in the shallow face of this study in darkness. These windows and the light within them have their own unsettling feature. The light does not cast itself outward, leaving the area between it and the guest a river of absence. And that same time, the guest may realize that the special installation's entrance, the one through which they just walked only moments ago, is now gone, replaced by an abject darkness of a purity identical to that which lay ahead. The guest may then walk ahead, moving through the soupy black, using the peculiarly lit windows ahead as its North Star. As they reach the angle at which they can see through the glass, they will lay eyes upon this nameless museum's special installation. Wax sculptures of people stand motionless behind the glass. The guest will marvel at the lifelike qualities of the sculptures, forgiving the places in which the fact that they are indeed built of wax are made apparent. The eyes, after all, are the most difficult thing to recreate in any medium. What will truly captivate the guest, however, is what they will interpret as the installation's use of mirrors to convey the illusion of space. The wax people will appear to number in the hundreds or even thousands, standing in a wholly disorganized fashion, stretching back farther than the human eye is capable of seeing. The background against which they stand has been painted so as to depict an unfamiliar landscape, the ground a cracked mess of red clay, strange, monolithic towers in the distance, a dizzying collection of black stars resting about the cosmos above. The method of design which this canvas bears will imbue the guest with the illusion of motion, inviting them to fix their gaze upon any given area and see in their periphery the swirling void in which 1,000 worlds exist and cease to exist in the span of a lingering glance. The guest will almost certainly then become aware of the direction in which each and every one of those innumerable wax sculptures' eyes are so intensely focused, that direction being wherever the guest happens to be standing at any given moment, in an unsettling manipulation of the viewer's disorientation that might inspire questions of the artist's intent, or if this manufactured sensation of being watched was a curious byproduct of the exhibit's creation, or a conscious decision meant to instill dread into the hapless passerby. Upon this realization, an audio recording will begin, one that explains the strange optical illusion known as the Mona Lisa effect, in which the eyes in a painting or other work of art follow the viewer around the room, right around the part of the recording that informs the guest of a misnomer in nomenclature that despite being named for Leonardo da Vinci's seminal work, the Mona Lisa doesn't actually exhibit the illusion. The guest may suddenly feel the need to question whether the wax sculpture's head, the one a row or two back from the glass, was turned at that angle when they last looked at it. And as they ponder that, they'll begin to wonder if all of their heads were in the same positions they were a moment ago, and then if the bodies had changed positions too, and hadn't the space closest to the glass seemed less crowded just a moment ago. The guest will likely assume that there appeared to be too many to have gotten a reliable idea of their positions, and by this time, the exit of the installation has opened. The yellow light from the main floor is pouring in at the opposite end of the hall, the same distance away from the windows as the entrance had been. The recording will finish up, and the guest will head back to the main showroom. But if the guest decides to look back before they exit the special installation area, they might see wax sculptures all pushed against the windows, their faces twisted into violent, odious scowls, expressions with a malevolence as pure as the darkness to which they will return when their spotlights shut back off. Accompanying this fearsome display is a soundtrack that is only heard should the wax sculptures be looked upon. A soundtrack of tortured screams played in reverse and at a volume so low to make the guest question if they're hearing it at all. But whether their curiosity compelled them to take one last glance back at the wax sculptures or not, the guest will emerge from the special installation into a showroom with a decidedly different atmosphere than it had just minutes ago. The paintings that once depicted joyous families now feature father raping daughter, mother smothering infant son, brother cannibalizing sister. Tranquil scenery has given way to sinister hellscapes, lands of smoke and ash littered with brutalized cadavers of their unfortunate denizens. The expressions of statues and busts have transformed from happy or, at the least, optimistically indifferent to the same scornful grimaces as the wax figures. And some of the works, be they the horrors in paint or the horrors in clay, depict things not of this earth at all. Writhing tentacular masses, hideous grotesqueries composed of innumerable limbs, and eyes, and mouths, and possessing a fearsome apathy regarded the viewer and all of their kind. And in each piece, in every medium, the eyes will seem to follow the guest as they make their hurried, petrified way to the museum's exit, the scores of gazers feeling almost physical in their weight, as though the figures casting them are piled atop the shoulders of the guests, slowing their pace and quickening their already rapidly beating heart to the point of a cardiac episode. And as the guest pushes back through those African blackwood doors, they might hazard a look over their shoulder, where they will find amongst the hateful artwork scores of wax figures with their baleful, lifelike gazes all leering with their scorned visages at the departing visitor. The guests will then leave the nameless museum, perhaps glancing in their rearview mirror, perhaps wondering if the building had been at such an angle before. This angle that makes it seem as if the front of the building is perfectly in line with them. Its windows like eyes, windows that appear more numerous than they were as the guest approached the building. The guest will go about their life for a time with the unmistakable feeling of having narrowly escaped a great and horrific danger. A week, perhaps a month, even a year or more may pass. But in due time, the Mona Lisa effect and the consequences it wreaks on those unfortunate travellers who happened upon that outwardly nondescript structure that houses that nameless museum will return. First, it will be instances that the guest can easily brush off as being a result of their paranoid mind. A single magazine cover or a single person in a photograph of many. But before long, the guest will find that the actors in every shot in a film or television show seem to be breaking the fourth wall for the sole purpose of peering directly at them. And even worse, all of their eyes will have that same little something off about them. That minor incongruence characteristic of the wax sculptures in the special installation of that nameless museum. Soon the malignant waxy eyes of every still photo, of every magazine cover and interior, every billboard, every advertisement, every animal both wild and domesticated, their eyes will follow the guest. And by the end, every person, the guest's family and friends, co-workers, strangers, their eyes will follow. The guest may try to run, to escape the oppressive observance of any and all eyes, be they live or manufactured. But even if they manage to isolate themselves from the world and all its eyes, no respite will come. Their mind will make eyes where none are, from shapes and angles and even their own myodosopuses. The eyes will never cease to follow them, and the madness that accompanies being constantly watched will prove too much for the guest to handle. And their last thought before making their most final decision will be of the recording and the special installation of that nameless museum on the side of that desolate road, of how the Mona Lisa doesn't even exhibit the properties of the effect that bears its name.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Other Stories. The Mona Lisa Effect was written by Nick Botic, narrated and produced by James Barnett, aka Jimmy Horrors, with music by Mayu and Tom Robson, the sound effect provided by freesound.org. The episode illustration was provided by Luke Spoon of Carry On House. A quick thanks to our community managers Jasmine Arch, Joshua Boucher and his eyeless ones, Mary Pastrano and Cody Czarzasty, and to Joshua Boucher for helping with our submission reading. And of course to Ben Arrington for the ongoing explosion of content that he fires out of his social media canon. Nick Botic would like everyone to go and check out his novel on Amazon, Daughter's Drawings, and the link to that will be in the show notes. James Barnett is the producer of the Night's End podcast and After the Gloaming. Search for them wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check other works of his at jamesbarnettcreative.com. The Other Stories is a production of the Story Studio Hawk and Cleaver, and it's brought to you with a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. That means don't change it, don't sell it, but by all means share the hell out of it. So,
Until next time.